Hey there, my name is John Siskovich, and I'm the founder and creative director here at Farm Marketing Solutions. And I'm a farmer in Western Connecticut growing pasture poultry, pigs, eggs, hops, done some vegetables. I've done a lot of stuff. Right now I'm pretty concentrated into things that are directly related into our farm brewery. So I'm growing things that we use in our brewery, which for me is really cool because I could put all this work in, and then somebody else puts a bunch of work in, and then I get to have this delicious beer that I have literally my hands in at some point in the process, which is kind of awesome. Speaking about getting your hands in, you guys have put your hands into my business on a day-to-day basis and wrote me in with some of your questions. I wrote them down on a piece of paper, and now I have one from Chad Fleck. He asks, how do you price out your chickens when selling in parts? If you typically sell them for $6 a pound, whole, then what should you charge per pound for wings, leg, breasts, and thighs? Also, do you sell the livers and hearts? Chad, that's a great question because we get a whole chicken. We raise it. We spend all this time nurturing it. Baby chick, watch it grow out. You're hardening it off in the brooder, and then it goes out into the field, and you move it out to the field, and every day you're with that bird in it. It moves forward and eats grass and gobbles up grasshoppers, and then you kill it and you eat it, and then you're gonna sell it to other people, and you care about it, and you don't want any of that to go to waste. So finding the best use for all of those little bits is one, good business practice, and two, just respectful to the animal. And then, your customers may be tired of whole birds, and depending on what your scale and your motivations are, you want to branch out into selling other parts. Now, there are producers of APA, American Pasture Poultry Producers Association, who raise 20, 40, 80, 100,000, 350,000 broilers a year. And they can hold more inventory and find creative ways, and they have a lot to add to this conversation. And they talk about it on the forum, which is part of being an APA member. It's the APA Plus membership. Now, I'm gonna give you my experience, but if you're serious about this, you're gonna join them, because that's where you're gonna go for all the good intel for people who raise at a larger scale than me. So I'm gonna tell you what I did. At my processor, you have, it's $4.75 for a whole bird, bagged individually, labeled and weighed. And then it's a shrink wrap bag that I can take home, and it looks like a little football, and it's like great packaging. Like my processor does a freaking awesome job. Looks really, really good. My customers have always been really happy, and I don't really have any complaints. That's good. Now, $4.75 for a whole bird. It goes up from there to process those birds. So we're talking like $6.25, $6.50. I've heard of some processors going up to $7.50, $8 for a whole cut up bird. If you want to take that bird, cut it up on all in the pieces. Now, if you're good enough to the point where you're cutting up all these birds yourself and you're parting them out, I don't know why you're watching my YouTube channel, because I'm sure you already know what all your costs are and what the expense is and what the time, and you've done time and motion studies to say, hey, it costs this much extra labor to cut up my birds, so this is what my extra processing costs, so I need to build that into my cost. So right there leads into our base cost. If it cost me $4.75 to process that bird, and for just the bird, it's a fixed cost, but it costs $8, we'll go on the high end, $8 to get it cut up. I need to not say, oh, that's all $6 a pound. I need to cover that cost, so I'm maintaining my margin. So if I want an ideally 30 to 40% margin, I need to add that cost into my cost of goods sold and determine what my margin is on all those parts, so that I can make up that cost from the customer, not from me. Because by cutting it up, you're adding inconvenience. The bird doesn't taste different. It's not more or less nutritious. I would argue that I like a whole bird better than a cut up bird, but for convenience sake, for your customer's sake, sometimes that's the road to go. Now, starting out on this, go to supermarkets and see what they cost for thighs, for wings, for breasts. You should have already done that for your whole bird, but do that for your parted out birds as well. And then mark up from there. You want to, if you're gonna net a certain amount per bird on a whole bird, and you add in some costs, you want to raise the cost of that individual item to reflect your added costs, your added inventory costs, your added handling costs, your added anything that you do extra. you want to build into the price of that bird, and that is how you're going to price it out from there. So I can't tell you that, well, if you charge $6 a pound, you're going to want to do this, 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 and this, because you may be using different feed than me. You may be having different, you may have different management styles and practices. You have to figure out what the cost for you is for a whole bird, and then add in the cost and break it out for bits and pieces. And you're going to play with that over time. You're going to say, well, we charged this and it was too much, so we're going to back it down. You can ask some of your good customers that you've established, or your friends and family, hey, what would you reasonably cost? What would you reasonably pay for a pasture-raised, boneless, skinless chicken breast, when you know there's all that waste in there, and all that waste has to be covered. So that's pricing. Parts-wise, I do sell hearts and livers. Typically, when I'm doing whole birds, I put them in the bird so that I have a nice, clean inventory where they get the giblets, a neck, a heart, and a liver in the bird. That adds weight to the bird, which will make them a little heavier, which makes my per unit cost go up, but my per unit net go up as well, which is great because it doesn't cost me anything extra to stuff them in the chicken. But there are those people who want just livers and hearts, and if you're doing it at a large enough scale, you can sell those as well. I did them for like $3-4 a pound. I probably could have charged a little bit more, but that seemed to move at a ready rate where I was out of them by the time I went to the next batch of birds, without having to really do a special marketing push for livers and hearts. There's some education involved with teaching people how to cook this stuff, but once you get a few evangelists, they're gonna buy up all your livers and hearts, or there's gonna be a dog food company or somebody who wants to buy it for their pet that's gonna take that up as well. We'll get into using frames and dog food. Frames is the bones that if you're parting birds out, you're gonna have the spine and the rib cage left, and we'll get into that in another video. This one's already running long. I hope that made some sense. I hope it clarified some things. I know it's a little vague. We're all in this together. It's tough. It's late at night right now. I'm in my basement. I'm recording this stuff, and just excited that it's getting out in the world, and that I'm able to share this conversation with the people who are asking me questions, the people who are watching this YouTube video, which is you, made it all the way to the end. Thanks for taking the time, and until next time, I will see you out in the field.